Alright. This was going to be interesting. Now, if I have learned anything about doing videos about race and sports, it's that no matter how much I try to not offend people, y'all gonna be offended. Alright? I've just accepted it. I've tried to do topics where I've tried to be as PC as possible, and no matter what, people get offended. So y'all just gonna have to get your feelings hurt today. Look, let me make it very clear what my point is. First of all, I think it's very, very, very hard to prove racism. Now, anytime you talk about race, it does get tricky because there's racism, there's prejudice, and then there's discrimination. Three things that are very similar but are very different. So prejudice is prejudging. It's having a conscious or sometimes unconscious rational reasoning about a person based on their identity to a specific group. Usually it involves hatred. I like to think as prejudice being in the mind, something you think about someone. Then there's discrimination. Discrimination has to do with actual policies, right? So discriminations have to do with putting rules and regulations into effect. I like to think of discrimination having to do with hands because you actually have to do work to discriminate. You could be prejudiced and no one could ever know, but you actually have to do something to actually discriminate. And then you have racism, right? Racism is like this big wheel that just kind of makes it, it's just in the background. You really don't have to do anything for racism to take place. Once discriminatory policies are put into place, it's just there. And now it becomes racist. And you don't necessarily have to have prejudice against someone to participate in something that's racist. So with that being said, if you don't think college players should be paid, I don't think you're racist. Some people might. They'll be down in the comments section if you want to argue with them. But this is all I'm saying about the NCAA paying players and when it comes to race. I'm not saying that it's racism. I'm just saying it smells a lot like the plantation. Now look, I want to be very clear, very, very, very clear from the onset of this video. I am not accusing anyone in the NCAA of being a racist. I'm not doing it. I think we throw out the term racist way too much to the point that when we actually need to use it, it loses its power, okay? So I'm not accusing anyone of being racist. I think it's very, very hard to actually prove racism, okay? Because you can't just look at the outcome and look at how things are happening. You actually have to prove intent. You actually have to show that beyond a shadow of a doubt that what these person or these people are doing is intentionally to cause harm or to discriminate against a certain group of people. So with that being said, I am not calling anybody in the NCAA racist. All I'm saying is it smells a lot like the plantation. Look, all I'm saying is, when was the last time we had a group of rich white men using young black men for their physical abilities to generate revenue for them and then not sharing that revenue with the very people who generate that revenue? That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that these people are racist. I'm just saying it smells like the plantation. Now, let's get some things established before we get deep dive into this video. Number one, we understand from the previous videos that Division I football and men's basketball, Division I men's basketball, are the profit generating sports. Okay? They're the profit generating sports. No other sports in the NCAA are continuously as profitable as these two sports or generate as much money as these two sports. It's not even close. Let's start with some facts. According to the Institute for Diversity and Equity in Sports, in 2017, 55.9% of all FBS Division I football players were African American, and 53% of all basketball players were African Americans. The profit generating sports. According to that same report, across all men's NCAA sports, 63.7% were white males and only 17.6% were African American males. So what you have here are the two sports that are predominantly African American financing all of the money for all of the other sports that are disproportionately white. Look, and in this video, I want us to think about a few things, okay? Number one, here's what I need you to do. I need you for 1 second to not see yourself as a black man or a white man or a Hispanic man or a Chinese woman or whoever you are, okay? If you're watching this video and you're from America, just think of yourself as an American for 1 second. And let me ask you this question. In America, are we so comfortable with black exploitation that we can't see it or we make excuses for when it happens? Again, this is not a white issue, this is not a black issue, and I'll prove it to you right now. Let's take hip hop. In hip hop, a young black man can write a song that glorifies drugs and criminal behavior. A young black man can make a song that glorifies that lifestyle. Black people will consume that music and listen to that music. Then someone from a white-owned record label will then come and finance that black man to continue to make these records that are glorifying criminal behavior and criminal activity. They'll allow this black man to use their white recording studio to make his music, send it down to a white radio station where white advertisers are ready to advertise against this black music that glorifies criminal behavior, and now it will be consumed by masses of both black and white people. What I'm asking is could a white singer get away with making a song about sipping lean and disrespecting women and we all just consume it and love it? What I'm saying is, in America, we love seeing black men, particularly on the bottom. All of us. This isn't a white thing. This is like, we do it too. Black people, we do it too. Don't say you don't, you do it too. Okay? We all do it. And what I'm saying is that in America, we are so very comfortable with seeing black people exploited that we just kind of shrug our shoulders when it happens. I think almost 80 to 90% of the people that I talk to and having this conversation all agree the players should be paid. Like, it's not even a question. March Madness will generate over $1 billion in 3 weeks, and the players don't get anything, okay? Now the argument is that, oh, well, the players receive a scholarship. Okay, keep in mind, a scholarship is not a degree. And you can't be so naive to actually think that these players are actually getting the opportunity to study and take part in the full university experience when they're competing, particularly in season and practicing 30, 40, sometimes up to 50 hours a week. But bigger than that, these are the people who are financing the rest of the sports. There was a time at LSU when the football team generated 25% of the overall revenue for the total university. Not 25% of the athletic department, but 25% of the total revenue of the university. Quite literally, football team, which was primarily African American, was financing a quarter of the rest of the university. My thing is, we keep saying we can't pay the players for all these reasons. We can't pay the players because if you pay the players, then you got to pay the lacrosse team, then you got to pay the baseball team, then you got to pay the women's team, which I'm very happy people keep bringing up women in Title IX, because I'm going to totally debunk that myth in the next video when we talk about 13 myths about not paying players, because people love to use women as an excuse, but women are not the reason why you can't pay the players. We got to stop using women as an excuse. I digress. Anyway, people keep saying you can't pay the football team and the basketball team and the quarterback because you got to pay for all these other people. My response to that, is it right to steal from the linebacker to pay for the lacrosse player? And I say no, it's not. I say if the lacrosse team can't get people out to their games and can't generate revenue or can't find the funding from donors, then too bad. Again, we talked about the majority of the sports in the NCAA are primarily white, but almost all the funding come from the small subsection of the black student athletes in the NCAA. There's no way you can tell me this is right. Again, I'm not saying it's racism. I'm just saying it smells like the plantation. My question is this. This is a question that I have that I don't think we will ever really know the answer to. Because number one, I have talked about that even before black people were playing college sports, schools were paying players, okay? Schools paid, again, before black athletes were competing in intercollegiate sports, they were paying white athletes to get the best white athletes to their school. But here's my thing. This is what I'm saying. At the level that it's at now, because the NCAA is a multi-billion-dollar organization. At the level that it's at now, the question that I ask myself is, if it was reversed, if it was the white students were financing all the black sports or all the black athletes, would we as America have a problem with it, or would we as America want to see something done about it? Now, here's another thing to think about when it comes to this discrepancy. The black male athletes are graduating at a lesser rate than the white student athletes. Now, all you eugenicists in the comment section are probably going to point out to the low IQ scores and the low SAT scores of the black student athletes. I'm glad you're here with us today. Look, my thing is this. If a black man or a black kid is not smart enough or does not have the grades to get into a university, he should not be admitted to that university. It doesn't matter how well he throws a football or how good he puts a ball in a hoop. If he does not meet the requirements to get into that university, he should not be allowed into the university. But what we are not going to do is allow the universities to compromise their own academic integrity by allowing black athletes into the school who don't deserve to be into the school, and then when they don't graduate at the same rate as the white athletes, then place the blame on them. No, the universities were the one who compromised their academic integrity because they knew if they could put a jersey on that black athlete, he would put butts in seats and generate revenue. Here's another part of the race conversation that I actually found quite interesting and I just kind of stumbled upon. If you look in America, right, and you look for the richest people in America, of course they're white. I don't have a problem with that. If you're black, you shouldn't have a problem with that either. The country's 70% white. What do you expect? But if you look at the top 15 richest white people, here's what you notice. They own businesses. They sell products. They own huge corporations and things like that. Conversely, if you look at the richest black people in America, nearly all of them are in the entertainment industry in some way, shape, or form. Athletes, singers, actors. They're all in the entertainment form. Because what we have found out in the black community is that if you can entertain white people, you can get rich in this country. And believe it or not, it causes a lot of divide in the black community. This is where a lot of our divisions between Uncle Sam and tap dancing for the white man and all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. We got to work that out amongst ourselves, by the way. But what we have figured out in America, and again, this is why I think we are very comfortable with this idea of exploitation as long as we're being entertained. Because it's stealing. It's just stealing. Again, guys, I'm not saying it's racism, because racism is very hard to prove, and I think if we're going to use the word racist or racism, we gotta have our ducks in a row. But what I am saying, this is clear exploitation. This is clear wage suppression, because the NCAA can dictate how much money you can make. Actually, I have to correct myself from my last video. In my last video, I said that athletes were not allowed to get jobs. The truth is they can get jobs, but only if it's approved by the university and the NCAA. And they can't work during the season in which their sport is in. Which to me doesn't negate what I brought up in the last video. That's wage suppression. If somebody wants to pay me $50,000 for watching grass, I should be able to get paid $50,000 for watching grass. But the idea that a person can become this super popular high school athlete and then all of a sudden go to college and all of a sudden he can't make money off the name and brand that he built over the course of many, many years because he's a student athlete and it will compromise the integrity of amateurism, That's an excuse. That is an excuse for exploitation. The reality of it is the payout between the scholarships that are given and the payout of how much revenue that is being generated is nowhere near equivalent. They're not even close to being equivalent. It's not close. So I don't even buy the argument that, oh, well, these people are getting degrees, because we've talked about it. They're not getting their degrees. Again, I think this has to be attacked not as a black issue or a white issue, but more of as an American issue. Because again, in America, I think we are totally fine if people are being exploited as long as we're being entertained. As long as we are being entertained, we're fine with it. I don't think any of us are going to stop watching college football. I don't think any of us are going to stop watching college basketball. We know the players are being exploited. But does that speak to the NCAA, or does that speak more to us? Does that speak to more of us as a society where we know that this person is not getting their fair share? We know that this person could be generating more in their life and could be getting more income and receiving more benefits. We talked about it in the last video. These guys, particularly in men's basketball, they hit big time. The NBA is guaranteed money. And 13 of the top 15 basketball players of the 2017 high school draft class were all drafted in the NBA, and they're all making on average over $3 million a year this year. Most of us won't see that kind of money in our entire lives. And that's the money that they're generating in a year. Why are we okay with, then, athletes not being paid? I don't think it's right that you steal from the linebacker to pay for the lacrosse player. If the women's team can't generate enough revenue for their team, that's on them. And by the way, that's not the way Title IX works. We're going to hit that next video. But here's my thing. Here's the point that I want to get across, okay? Taking our American caps off and going back to our little racial boxes, if you so to speak. If you're black, you can't just attack this as a black and white issue. If you actually want stuff done, you actually have to come together. We actually have to unite on certain issues. And we have to figure out a way for this to benefit all of society. Because humans are selfish. We're selfish. At our core, we care about ourselves primarily. So I don't expect the NCAA to be this extremely generous, pious organization that's just going to dole out money because it's the right thing to do. A lot of people don't do the right thing until it's to their benefit to do the right thing. So I think as Americans, as student athletes, we got to be more creative and think more about how can we get fairness accomplished in this country? How can we let players be compensated the way that they should be compensated? Glad you asked. My next video, I'm going to be going over the 13 myths about not paying college players. I think you'll find it really interesting. Like it if you like it, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you next time. Peace.